Have you ever just looked at a world map? I mean, really looked at it. The lines that divide countries, the languages people speak, even how money moves around the planet. So much of that is a direct result of colonization. It's this massive force that didn't just shape our history, it literally built the foundations of the world we're all living in right now. So, to really get a handle on our present, we've got to go back and unpack its past. At its heart, this entire story really boils down to three things that are all tangled up together. First up, the raw, unfiltered desire for power. Next, of course, comes the need to control land. And finally, the engine that makes it all run, the exploitation of resources. Power, land, and resources. That simple, but incredibly potent combination drove centuries of expansion, created unimaginable conflict, and built massive global empires. Okay, so let's start with the basics. The word colonization gets thrown around a lot, right? But to really understand its impact, we need to be clear on what we're actually talking about. See, this isn't just about winning a war and going home. It's about building a whole new, permanent system. It kicks off when one group takes control of a territory, sure, but the key is what happens next. They settle their own people there and then completely rewire the local economy and culture to funnel all that wealth and power back home. You can almost think of it like a formula, a three-step process you see repeated over and over throughout history. First, you establish control, and that's usually done with military force. Second, you make that control permanent through settlement. And third, you build a system of exploitation to pull out as much wealth as you possibly can. So, when did this colonial formula really go global? Well, the major turning point was the Age of Conquest, an era that was only made possible by all the amazing technological breakthroughs of the Age of Exploration. And what's so wild is that technology was really the key that unlocked the whole thing. In the 15th century, you get these huge advances in shipbuilding and navigation. Suddenly, for the first time, European powers could cross these vast oceans. This didn't just open up a few new trade routes, it unlocked entire continents for them to conquer, starting with the Americas, and then quickly spreading all across the globe. But the human cost of this conquest, it was just catastrophic. In the Americas, the arrival of Europeans led to the total collapse of incredible civilizations like the Aztec and the Inca. It was this terrible combination of warfare, brutal forced labor, and, the most devastating of all, diseases that the indigenous people had no immunity to. It's estimated that it wiped out as much as 90% of the population. But conquest, that was really just step one. The long-term goal was to build something much more permanent, a global economic engine, one that was meticulously designed for one single purpose: to extract wealth. Entire colonial economies were just rewired. Instead of growing food for themselves or making their own goods, their land and their labor were forced into producing cash crops and raw materials, things like sugar, silver, and cotton. And all of this wealth flowed in one direction, from the colonies straight back to the empires in Europe. But an engine like that, it needs fuel. And the primary fuel that powered this entire system for centuries wasn't silver or sugar. It was something far more precious. It was human lives. Yeah, you absolutely cannot separate colonization from the transatlantic slave trade. To get the manpower for their plantations, empires engineered one of the largest forced migrations in human history. Millions of African men, women, and children were captured, treated like property, and shipped across the Atlantic in the most horrific conditions imaginable. And their stolen labor, producing all that sugar, tobacco, and cotton, generated the staggering wealth that built these empires. But listen, this was never a one-sided story of just domination. Wherever there was oppression, there was always resistance. From the very first ships that landed, colonized peoples fought back, and that sparked a centuries-long struggle that would, eventually, bring these massive global empires to their knees. This right here is the fundamental conflict, right? It's a clash of two completely opposite goals. While the empires were fighting to maintain control and extract wealth, the colonized were fighting to get back their freedom, their economies, and their very identities. And that resistance took all kinds of forms, from huge armed rebellions to the quiet, powerful acts of just keeping a culture alive. The real turning point came after World War II. The old colonial powers were exhausted, their grip on their empires was weakened, and that created an opening. A powerful wave of independence movements just swept across the globe. Through the 50s and 60s, dozens of new nations were born.
But as you can see here, winning political freedom was just the first step in a much, much longer struggle against the deep-rooted legacies left behind by empire.
So, why is all this history so important to understand today? Well, because the story of colonization didn't just end when the flags came down. Its legacies are woven into the very fabric of our modern world, shaping everything from the global economy to how we see each other. I mean, just take a look at global inequality. The patterns of wealth that were set up during the colonial era, where resources flowed from one part of the world to another, are still shockingly visible today. Many former colonizing nations are still some of the wealthiest, while many former colonies continue to grapple with the economic systems they inherited. Or think about something as simple as the languages we speak. The fact that English, Spanish, and French are so dominant around the world is no accident. It's a literal map of the reach of former empires, which didn't just impose their languages, but their entire legal systems and cultural frameworks on huge parts of the globe. So when we put it all together, what are these enduring legacies? We're talking about the political borders on our maps, a lot of which were drawn by colonizers with no regard for the people who lived there. We're talking about that deep economic inequality between nations. We're talking about the roots of so many social and racial tensions that we're still dealing with. And yeah, we're talking about the very languages we use for international business and politics. It's all a direct echo of the colonial past. In the end, colonization did way more than just conquer land. It rewired the entire world. And understanding this history isn't just some academic exercise. It is absolutely essential for making sense of the conflicts, the inequalities, and the power dynamics of today. Which really brings us to the most important question of all. How will these incredibly powerful legacies continue to shape our future? Because this story is far from over. Its next chapter is being written right now.